Hi, Becca.
Hello.
We made it.
I did.
Every time I do this, I always think to me, it's just some tech. It's gonna be easier, but it doesn't get easier. I seem to forget it every time, and I have to start remembering how to set up.
I
What do I press?
know.
What button goes where? So
I know. I've been busy making sure that everything is charged and everything is quiet in the house as well.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah,
So you
fingers
have,
crossed.
yeah, exactly right. So thanks for joining us. We're going to start right away. So welcome to our Home Truth series. This is where we talk about all things home, property, and I'm Timmy Phillips from Poise Concierge. And today we're bringing you an expert in their field, and that is we have today Becca Cranfield from Athena Stone Care. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself and tell us a bit about
Thank
yourself.
you.
You as well as Athena Stone Care.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you. So yeah, I'm Becca. I'm co-director of Athena Stone Care. We are specialists in natural stone restoration and maintenance. So that means everything from looking after marble worktops, limestone floors, any natural stone that you might have within your home. We're here to help keep it looking as beautiful as the day that you bought it.
Right. And where do you cover? Are you national? Are you just, because I know you do London, I know you do Surrey. Not sure exactly how far
Yeah.
out you go.
So we're based in Buckinghamshire, and we tend to cover London and the home counties. So most of our work is either London, Buckinghamshire, Berkshire, Surrey. We do travel over to Hertfordshire, and anywhere really that you can get to from Bucks within an hour. So we've got a passion for restoring floors wherever they are.
Okay, so tell me, I mean, I know you've said it with your husband, or rather you joined him, but tell me a bit about this journey into stone care, restoration, and care.
Yeah, so my husband Dave set up the company 10 years ago, well, nearly 11 years ago
Oh,
actually, because
yeah.
this year seems to have flown by. I don't know if anybody else
I
noticed
know.
that. Scary.
I know, it's halfway
So
through September.
I know. I got so used to telling everyone it was our 10-year anniversary, and now I'm like, oh God, no, it's going to be 11 years in January. So yeah, Dave set up the company 10 years ago, and he built the company on his own. He's the expert when it comes to all things stone restoration. So he takes the lead on site. I joined the team 4 years ago,
Yeah,
and we decided to look to grow the company. So as I say, he'd developed a really good grounding in terms of the actual work itself, and the expertise needed to take any floor, worktop or wall and transform it. And I really recognised that he had a huge passion, not just for the work, and I think it's for us and especially for him, it's not just about can we restore a floor, but it's actually about giving someone that life back to their natural
yeah,
stone. And
yeah,
he's got such a passion for natural stone, how beautiful it can be, and so much misconception that there is out there about natural stone and whether it's hard to care for, difficult to have in your home, and all of those sorts of things. And so we decided 4 years ago to actually see what we could do with that and really kind of try to change the industry so that people could fall in love
right.
with stone as much as we are.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we're now, as I say, we're now kind of 4 years on down the line. We've got a team of 3 on site, so we're still a small company,
Yeah,
which is nice because it means that um, you're not just getting anybody to turn up and restore your floor. You're getting one of our handpicked team members who will come in and provide the exact same service with the exact same level of care and attention as Dave does. We've got 2 vans on the road, and yeah, just offering our services to more people. And one of the things, as you know well, Timmy, that we're most passionate about is actually helping people to keep their stone
yeah,
looking like that.
yeah.
And that's something, I mean, actually, I literally just 5 minutes before we came on this call, I came back to such a gorgeous email from a client that we were with yesterday who has some of the most beautiful, if anyone has seen our Instagram from yesterday, had beautiful, beautiful marble table and worktops. And we went in and we restored the stone for them, and it was kind of etched and marked, and we polished it all. It looked beautiful, and we gave them all of our aftercare advice, told them how to look after it. And he emailed back just saying, I just wanted to say a huge, huge thank you for not only restoring the stone, it looks beautiful, the service was incredible, but also kind of the expertise you were able to give us in terms of how to keep it looking that way.
Yeah, yeah.
And the one little thing he said to me that just really touched me was, I wish we'd found out about you sooner. And that for me says it all. I think there's a lot of people who have natural stone, or they might move into a property that has natural stone, and they just don't know what to do with it. And there's been a lot of misconception that people have had about not knowing the right products to clean stone with, or that it even can be looked after so simply and easily. So our greatest passion is not just restoring stone, but helping everybody to look after their own stone. And actually, if you install stone and have a beautiful worktop or floor, then we want to make sure from the minute it goes into your property that you know what to do, because you can actually avoid ever needing my services. I'm probably going to do
That's
myself
what
out
I
of
found
work.
interesting. The first time I spoke to you about one of our clients, you gave us all the information. I was like, does she realize that she's almost talking herself out of a job? I'm not entirely sure. Then you told me so many details about how to look at the kitchen, how to look at the bathroom, the difference between. I was like, at this point, we're not going to need to hire her. And for me, that was a big deal, because I was like, that's the kind of person I like to leave with my clients, and they will do the job and they do it well, because it's not just about getting the job, really. It's about making sure the client gets what they actually need, which you don't get often. And funny enough, when you even gave us the course, I thought this is not as expensive as I thought it would be, actually, which is another thing. I thought, okay, that's quite interesting. And the whole experience, from speaking to you, to meeting Dave, to then organizing everything and the reminders and everything, it just made it so seamless, because we manage properties and it's such a headache sometimes trying to chase up. You're not sure when they're coming, the reminders, the after, everything was just perfect. But you mentioned stone care, natural stone care, quite a bit. So before we even get further into it, it might be good to explain what exactly is natural stone, because obviously some of it is marble, but a lot of people don't actually know what is considered natural stone, rather, and then, so if you don't mind explaining a bit about that, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of the natural stone that we mostly work with, so 80% of the work that we do is with floors to start with. And of that, most of that is limestone. And that's only because most people are going to have a limestone floor. It's a really common choice for flooring. So when it comes to floors and natural stone, mostly you're going to find limestone, travertine, which is really, really similar to limestone. The main difference, and what I always say to people to look out for if you've moved into a property and you're not sure what stone you've got, travertine tends to be pitted, so you've cut little holes throughout.
Okay.
They're usually filled when you purchase the stone, but they can come out over time. So it looks very, very similar to limestone. So you've got your limestones and your travertines. Then you've got marble, which obviously is the one that everyone kind of knows about. We also see slate and granite floors occasionally. So they're probably the two most common in terms of natural stone floors. And then when it comes to worktops and bathrooms, most commonly it's marble. We do see some beautiful limestone worktops as well, and you can get some really nice actually blue and grey limestones, as opposed to for flooring typically it's those gorgeous kind of honey and beige coloured limestones. But for worktops, there's some absolutely beautiful blues, and then granite worktops are the other main type of worktop that you'd see. And again, I literally was just talking to somebody about granite worktops today, and usually people think of that kind of really dark, quite, not dull because they're all shiny, but kind of, you've got a bit of a bog standard granite, but actually there are some beautiful granites out there as well, and they're lovely for worktops as well. what the things that people commonly misconstrue as
Yeah.
being stone is quartz.
Right.
So it's different from quartzite. Quartzite is very expensive, and occasionally we do see quartzite in a worktop, but quartz itself isn't a natural stone, it's
Okay.
manufactured. And then you've got your siltstones, Caesar stones, decton, which are a mixture of man-made materials. So you've got some who, and porcelain worktops are becoming quite popular at the moment. And then you've got your different brands. So things like Caesar stone is just the name of a brand. It's
Right.
not
Right. Right.
stone. And the same with siltstone. So they're manufactured worktops. And the same with something like concrete, which seems obvious, but again, because a lot of people do natural stone, concrete, and man-made things,
Right. Right.
people get all of these things mixed up. So, so yeah, they're probably the common mistakes we see in terms of people kind of calling and saying, "Oh, we've got a natural stone," and actually it turns out to be quartz or Caesar stone or something like that. I also completely forgot to mention sandstone. Obviously not relevant for worktops, but sandstone floors as well. We see a lot of, and then patios. We see limestone and sandstone
Right.
patios
Right.
as well.
Because we actually got a question. Someone was saying, ask the quartz versus natural and stone question in terms of, you know, again, everybody always ask us, so what is better? And I was like, well, that's relative to what part of the house or how much work, you know. So is there like I'm sure there's no box standard answer to that, but any, you know, why would somebody choose quartz as opposed to natural stone?
So it's one of the questions we get asked a lot, and it's something I'm really passionate about as well. Actually, I'm really honest about. There's so many considerations when you're choosing a worktop,
Yeah.
and loads of angles to look at it from. So if you look at it from an aesthetic point of view, then if you want marble, then in my eyes, there's nothing that matches marble. So
Mm.
any of the man-made versions of marble to me do not look the same. So if you're purely designing a house because you want it to look beautiful and you want marble, then go for it. And if that's your only consideration, then marble is the only choice. If you're designing a property or it's your own property
Mm-hmm.
and you want only completely practical things, you don't have time to look after things, you don't have time for lots of care and maintenance, you've got 3 kids, 2 dogs, you throw loads of parties where you spill champagne everywhere, then don't get marble. If you want something that you never have to look after and think about, then yeah, your quartz is going to be a great option for that,
Right.
because it doesn't require that same level of care. It's super duper hard wearing. It can dull over time, and there are certain things that can stain it. And so from that point of view, that would be my advice for that. The other side to look at it is if you're designing with sustainability in mind.
Right. Yeah.
So if you want something that is very sustainable, eco-friendly, then again, I would argue towards natural stone, because one of the beauties of natural stone is that it is durable and it's built to last. And if you look at every other country aside from this country, they have a whole load of marble. So look at Italy,
Mm.
for example. They've got marble everywhere,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they use it and they love it, and they they know it's going to last forever, and your marble will last forever, and you can restore it. So if you damage your marble, it can be restored.
Right.
It can also be reused and recycled, whereas your quartz can't be. And we do come across people who've damaged their quartz, and there's nothing that can be done.
Right. Okay.
It's also, in terms of kind of the carbon footprint of marble and natural stone, it actually outperforms a lot of the man-made substances, just in
Right.
terms of there's less processing. You get a slab, you cut a slab, you polish a slab, you install it.
Right.
Whereas
Right.
there's a lot more processing needs to go into the man-made materials. So there's the sustainability angle I think that people need to think about.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the other thing that I always say to people is think about what it is you really want. So I've got, for example, I'm literally sat at a marble table right now.
Right.
That sounds very fancy, doesn't it? But it's not. It's if I look at it, I can tell you where every mark, scratch, everything on it is. But if you walked into my house, you wouldn't. You'd go, gosh, that is a gorgeous piece of Nero Marquina.
Right.
And I know everything about how to care for stone, but I don't necessarily look after my own stone. And I don't care. It's not a show home. And
Yeah, yeah.
we see lots of clients. I remember going into a client's home probably 6 months ago, and she had a gorgeous, like 8 meter squared kitchen island.
Oh,
I said,
wow.
God, that's beautiful. I said, do you want me to take a look at it while I'm here? Because I was there to look at the floor. And she said, you can do, but I quite like what it looks like. It's got a few marks on it, but
Yeah, yeah.
we live in this house. I'm not here to show off. And so when people ask me kind of, is it better to not have natural stone because natural stone needs so much extra care and
Right.
attention? Well, it depends what you want from your natural stone as well. If you want it to look perfect, then yes, you're going to have to invest in the right cleaning regime, professional
Mm,
restoration. But if actually you just want a beautiful piece of stone and you're happy for it to wear, then you can still have natural stone and it's still practical. And it's such a personal choice how
yeah,
much
yeah.
you want to put into it. And that's how I always advise people. So it's not a straight answer to the question, I'm
I
afraid.
know.
There is so much to consider, it's not a question I can ever answer for somebody because there is just so much option, and
Yeah, yeah,
I don't envy anybody when you're coming to choose materials, especially for something like a worktop. There is such a plethora of different materials out there now, and
Sorry, we lost you from it. I can't hear you.
options, colours. It's not an easy question to answer, but we're always happy to be really upfront with people about what to expect if they do want to use natural stone. And I think that's the important thing is as long as you know what you're getting into with natural
Yeah.
stone, then if you've got the right information, then it is really easy to live with. As I say, we've got a marble dining table and coffee table, and I don't find them difficult. I'm not over careful. I'm not oversensitive about it. So,
But it's
um,
it's great that even if it was damaged, you can actually restore it compared to
mm,
the other one. And the sustainability aspect of it is something I didn't know. So you've got that aspect, which obviously is a deciding factor on some level. But the fact that if it was actually damaged, you can actually restore it compared to other ones, that could be a deal breaker in of itself because the cost of having to change an entire worktop just because there's nothing you can do, you're going to have to deal with a huge damage that has its cost and inconvenience implication, which you have to think about. And like I said,
yeah,
even the restoration is not that expensive when you look at it. I mean, again, that expensive are all relative to the per individual.
yeah,
But the other question I tend to have is, you be like, okay, I want to have natural stone, fair enough, but is that one that is preferable, like in the kitchen? Because I know, out of all the natural stones, I think marble, as far as I know, is the most porous one out of all of them. So it might require a bit more sensitive. But then again, like you said, you've got in Italy where it's like everywhere, anywhere, and the variety it offers you compared to the other natural stone is a lot more than all the natural stone out there. But would you still say there are some stones that if you were to put that in the kitchen, you would need a bit more work and is more susceptible to damage compared to if you had it, say, in the bathroom or in the hallway and stuff like that. So what would your sort of, in your opinion, what would your recommendation be in that aspect?
yeah. So it's a really tricky question, but to be honest, it's for worktops in the kitchen. I would recommend granite over
Right.
marble. And oddly enough, granite is actually very, very porous compared to marble,
Really?
which
Okay.
is which is something that people don't really know. But your bigger problem with marble in the kitchen is that it's a very acid sensitive stone.
Right.
So marble and limestone actually, but limestone is just less common for worktops. But marble, your two issues in a kitchen with marble are that it's acid sensitive
Right.
and it's a softer stone.
Right.
So
Okay.
it scratches very easily. And so with a kitchen, it just means that you've just got to be a little bit more careful. So if you spill anything acidic on your marble worktop, it will etch it. Now, the good thing is that etch mark, which people think is a stain, it's just surface level.
Right. Okay.
So it can be restored. And so it's not like you've ruined your marble. But you do have to be extra careful with anything from kind of a glass of wine that you might spill, lemon juice, vinegar. A lot of the things that you cook with commonly in a kitchen, you've got to be extra careful because marble's acid sensitive.
Right. Right.
And whereas with granite, you don't. Granite's not acid sensitive in the same way. So it can etch and it can damage to an extent, but in no way is it as kind of difficult in terms of the acid sensitivity as marble is. So I would certainly recommend granite over marble in a
Right.
kitchen.
Right.
It is very, very generally very hard wearing. So people don't usually come to us with problems with granite.
Right. Okay.
I see a lot more marble worktops because they need restoring, but I don't see a huge amount of granite worktops, which means they're not needing the restoration. So
Right. Right.
I would definitely recommend granite over marble in the kitchen.
Mm.
And then after that, in every other room, if you're going to go for natural stone, I don't really think there is necessarily a best or a worst
Yeah.
option. I would advise people in a bathroom, for example, to steer clear of having a very dark marble in a shower enclosure, for example.
Okay.
So we see a lot of people who've got Nero Marquina in a shower enclosure, and actually, again, because it's quite acid sensitive, what you can end up with is a limescale buildup.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And that again is a little bit more difficult to look after. So I would probably avoid that. And then other than that, I mean, for floors, uh, what you really want to look for is the finish
Right.
and something that's a bit more practical. So one of the things I would advise when it comes to flooring, rather than not just thinking about the type of stone, but think about the environment that the stone is in.
Right. Okay.
So, for example, for a floor, I would really tend to advise people not to have a very high polish. And people tend to love a really, really shiny floor. But one of the problems that you're going to find with that is that it's going to show up your traffic lines, just like, I mean, I always joke with my husband about how we need to start taking a different route around the house because we're treading down the carpet. And it's the exact same thing with your natural stone. You can, when I go into someone's home, I can already tell where they're going to tell me it's more worn.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's those areas where people are, you kind of high traffic areas. So if you've got a really high polish, you are going to notice that a lot
Right.
more. Whereas if you choose a honed finish or a satin finish, then you're just not going to notice it enough as much. So that would be my advice when someone's choosing natural stone for a floor, is not just think about the type of stone, but just think about the finish and be really practical with it,
Right.
because you'll never, I think people will see beautifully polished floors in hotels and all of these places, but they've got somebody who polishes that every single day.
Right.
The very high-end hotels are going to have somebody, they have their own in-house team polishing that floor. It's not practical to have in your own home. You're never going to be able to keep it that way.
Yes.
So that's why I usually advise. And I also, this sounds terrible, but I think honed floors look so much more beautiful. We did a project, gosh, this time last year actually,
Right. Okay.
with Sophie Patterson, who's an interior designer. And one of the comments that she made, so she had a polished floor and she didn't want it polished anymore. So we honed it, well, kind of a satin finish. And one of the comments she made afterwards is how much more you could see the beautiful intricacies of the stone.
Right. Okay.
Because with a polish, you're getting all these light reflections, and that's beautiful. But when you hone it down a little bit, you can see those beautiful, really unique things that make natural stone. And that's one of the things that I love about natural stone, is that you can get a piece of limestone from the same place, put it in 5 different properties, and it's completely different because you've got different parts of that stone,
Right.
and
Right.
they're all going to have different fossils and different imperfections, impurities, and just different little bits of colour in them. And when you actually hone the floor, or again, we've actually honed our worktop as well, I actually think you can see the beauty of the stone more. And it's interesting how many people comment on that. If they've had a really high polish and then you hone it for them, suddenly they can see that real natural
Right.
beauty of the
Right.
floor. So, and that, again, that is one of the amazing things about stone, is that you can change the finish. So you might start with something polished and then you choose to have it honed, or you could have it honed and then have it polished,
Right.
and you
Right.
can change your mind as many times as you want.
True.
And I think that's one of the wonderful things about stone, as well as all the different options, the finishes that you get anyway, kind of brushed, tumbled, everything. I mean, there's new words coming out for the different finishes you can have on
I know,
stone
right?
all the
I would
time.
actually, at this point, recommend that definitely follow Athena Stone Care's Instagram and their website. They've got amazing advice, and the cover amazing. You can see she's passionate about it. So send them questions in, but also they've got you have like a site on your site. I've noticed you've got like some amazing advice on what people should do, how to manage it, and again, it's quite surprising how when you look at some of the things you should do, they're fairly simple. You don't need to buy as many products as you think you should buy. And some of the product that you think you should use, actually you shouldn't use them. So I like the fact that, again, that just brings you back to the passion you've got for natural stone care. Well, it's a business, but you want to actually leave the person with something they enjoy, something that lasts, something that brings them joy, which is amazing. So I'll recommend, if you've got any questions, send them over. But at the same time, I'll recommend going to Athena Stone Care on their website, but also on Instagram, they show you the before and after. So you get to see, what those different finishing means. So you get to see, okay, it's polished or it's not polished. Because sometimes you're thinking, what does that actually mean? So you're actually able to see the visuals on their Instagram page. You can see that. So that makes it easier to make decisions. So while we're at that now, I want to ask, obviously, we've talked about having, the different kind of like restorations that you can do, but then there's the daily care, which is where I find that you find out it's not as difficult, even though, yes, some stones might require a bit more attention, i.e. what not to use around it, like, vinegar, lemon, all those things in the kitchen. In terms of actually caring for it, it's not half as complicated as we think it is. So what are the top tips you would say, right? If you've got a marble countertop, which tends to be the ones that we tend to see a lot of as well, what should you do? What can you do to keep it that way for as long as you can, basically?
Yeah, so I just say it's funny because it really is so simple to look after natural stone. And it's one of the things that we realised a long time ago, was that every time we would restore someone's stone, they would say to us, how do we keep it looking this way? And we realised that there was nobody giving that information.
Yeah.
So from the minute someone was buying stone, it was kind of just like, you've bought your stone, now you're on your own. And we just thought, well, actually, they're missing a trick, because it's so simple, and actually it's easy to consolidate that information. So we kind of launched our Athena Aftercare Guide again this time last year. Time's flying.
I know.
And it's funny because every time I look at it now, I actually look at it and go, how have we made this into a guide? Because it's really obvious. But it's really super simple. So we can start with worktops because they are the most straightforward, to be
Yeah.
honest. So with marble worktops, and actually with all natural stone, if you took no other advice from this Instagram or from our website or from anything I ever say, the only one piece of advice to remember is to only ever clean natural stone with something that is pH neutral.
Mm.
And it's one of the most common mistakes that we see is that people will just pick up a household cleaning product and they'll spray it all over their natural stone, and that's when you're going to cause damage, and that's
Yeah.
when problems occur. So it's really obvious. You look for the word stone safe on a product. If it doesn't say stone safe, then I wouldn't put it near your stone. Even if you think it might be okay, I just wouldn't chance it. So we recommend products from a company called Fila. That's Fila. They are an Italian company. If you've had natural stone, there's a strong chance it's been sealed with one of their products because they're one of the leading providers. And they do an excellent range of pH neutral. And one of the nice things is you can use it on anything. So it's not like you've got to have your Fila pH neutral for your
Right.
worktop and then clean everything else with something different. You can use it to clean everything, and I do.
Right.
We use it on I don't have marble worktops. I'm going to just put that out there. We've got a very trashy looking marble dining table, but I use my Fila cleaner on absolutely everything. So it's really, really simple. It's just, we would advise to kind of clean down your worktops quite regularly because you don't want to risk anything being on there and sitting on there.
Right. Right.
They also do a product called Fila Brio, Fila Refresh, which actually also adds a little trace layer of extra protection onto the stone as well.
Okay.
It's not going to stop it from etching, there is nothing you can do yourself that will stop acidic substances from etching your marble. So there's no special secret ingredient that we can offer you for that. But as long as you don't clean it with Viacal or Flash or things like this, then that is the main advice when it comes to worktops.
Yeah.
The other thing, and again, really, really, really simple, is if you do spill something on your worktop, be it a glass of orange juice or whatever, don't be tempted to wipe it, because if you wipe it, what you're doing is you're just spreading the acid.
All right.
And it's a really obvious thing, you just kind of wipe, but actually you need to blot it, because
Right.
actually it's not going to seep deeper into your stone, because chances are you've got a really highly polished marble worktop, which means the structure's really tight, so it's not going to sink in anyway. But above and beyond that, your stone's got a sealant impregnated into it. I won't go into the details of that. If anyone's really interested in sealants, there's a whole section on the website. But the damage is done in its surface level. So that's the main thing to remember. If you knock over your glass of orange juice, or in my case, your glass of champagne, the damage is done and it's surface level. So don't start spreading that around, because you're going to spread it over the surface. Just blot it, and that's it. The damage is done. If you want it restored to look new, get in touch with us. If not, just have a little mark on your worktop. But that's one of the key things to remember. And it is I guess it's kind of an automatic human reaction to just start wiping things everywhere. But that is when you're going to just start spreading things and making a problem. And the other thing, I guess, the other advice linked to that with marble, again, kind of less to do with the cleaning and more to do with prevention, really. But it is just thinking about everything that's surrounding your worktop as well. So, for example, if you've got a sink, you've got to think about like where that water is splashing around, and soapy water and things like that, and just really, really carefully wipe up every bit of water every single day. Kind of don't leave sitting water. And actually that's really, really important around a sink, and actually not so much in worktops, but in bathrooms we see it a
Right.
lot,
Okay.
where people kind of tend to leave their little soap dishes with water just accumulating beneath them, or their shower gel, or just around the taps. And what you'll find there is that water will just sit on the surface of the stone, and because it's not pH neutral and it's full of limescale and rubbish, it will just eventually start to etch the surface of the stone.
Right.
So it's really important every single day to make sure you are drying off all your marble surfaces and not leaving that sitting water, because if you do leave it, then eventually it will cause those etch marks. And one of the most horrific things I see in bathrooms is when that sitting water is made marks, and then somebody goes and attacks it with a limescale remover, and that causes all manner of problems. It can be restored, but I have seen some horrifically marked stone where people have sprayed Viacal all over it.
Yeah,
So
Viacal tends to be one of the that no, hell no
yeah,
product that
absolutely.
I don't think it's good for anything, but anyways, let's just leave that aside.
Well, no, I dread to think what goes into it. I do, but yeah, that and so like again, so moving from kind of the worktops into the bathroom, even little things, just really simple things like every time someone's taken a shower for the day, just squeegee down the walls, get all of that water off the walls so it's not sitting and seeping into the
Right.
stone. Make sure the bathroom ventilated. We also always remind people not just to think about what you're using to clean the stone, especially in a bathroom.
Okay.
It might be all well and good that you kind of go, oh, I've got my feeler product, I'm only using pH neutral, and then you go and clean your bathroom toilet and you splash bleach everywhere, all over your marble floor. So just a little bit of extra care and attention. I mean, we've seen, I had a client once who their cleaner had dripped bleach from like a towel, literally from the bathroom through to the utility, all across the marble floor. So it's just little things like that. And things like glass cleaners can sometimes be acidic.
Okay.
So if you're cleaning your glass or your stainless steel or other things surrounding your stone, it's just taking a couple of extra minutes to think about what you're using and just protect the stone. Just pop something down to protect the stone. It's kind of 2.5 minutes. And if you're going to constantly be picking up a shower gel with wet hands and then putting it down, then usually you'll get a little pool of water underneath it.
Yeah, yeah.
So have a little tray, so you're not putting that straight onto your marble.
Right.
Just have a little tray, and that way all that pool of water will go onto the little tray and not onto your marble. So it's just, for me, it's really, really simple things like that, and it honestly doesn't take very long. I wish I had a big secret to tell people, but I really don't. It's
Yeah, that's what I found really interesting. I was looking at the website and when you sent us the aftercare, and I was looking at everything, and I thought, apart from making sure you've got pH neutral products, it's the rest of it is very much, it's quite simple for something that you would expect to be a bit more complicated. So that was a relief for us, obviously, as well, because we have to brief the housekeepers and the cleaners to make sure they know what not to use, and we make sure everything that we buy is the right amount of product. But it was just good to know that it was quite a simple one. But the one thing I like about natural stone is the fact that you can still restore it. And I was speaking to Dave about it, and something about, I think it was the marble, how often can you polish it or restore it without actually losing any layer on the actual stone. And he explained, was like, really, really, really small amount. And then obviously think about the hotels where they polish theirs like every day, and it's still there. So that goes a long way in terms of explaining how longevity of natural stone. So in terms of the marble and granite, I can't remember exactly what he said, but I know he said something about you don't really take off that much of a layer, if at all, really, right?
No, not at all. And it's something, I mean, I always say this to people. So we've been working at Ralph Lauren on New Bond Street for well, as long as Dave and I have been together, weirdly, he did that job the night before our very first date. So for 6 years, we used to do it on a monthly basis. We now do it on a quarterly basis.
Right.
But we've been restoring their floor for 6 years, and they've got plenty more floor to restore. So it's millimeters that we take off. Now, that said, if a floor has significant lippage, so where the tiles are at a different height, we can take off more if needed to level a floor. But that's a different process. That's a kind of grinding process, and that's not something we do every single time. So once you've had your floor ground flat once, we wouldn't need to do that much. So it's just the same as kind of, I guess the way to think of it is just like really fancy sandpaper with really fancy, heavy, expensive machinery. So essentially what we're doing is when we restore, whether it's a floor or a worktop, we start with kind of little diamond segments. I should have bought some to show. So they're just abrasive segments filled with diamonds. Diamonds makes it sound really fancy, and they're not very fancy. But they're bonded onto a metal plate.
Right, okay.
And what that does is it just cuts away the very, 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 very top layer. And all we're doing is removing those scratches.
Right, okay.
And if anyone saw what it looks like when we've just done that first stage, and actually I've got a post coming about that in October because we've got some really nice stage by stage photos, but basically it just knocks the stone completely flat, and you'd probably look at me and think I'd ruined your worktop. And then what you do is you use finer and finer grit of abrasive just to start repolishing the surface. So it's weird because it's actually like we're scratching the stone, but you get tighter and tighter scratches until eventually you get the right amount of reflection, and it's highly polished again. So it's just like you'd use different grits of sandpaper, but these are segments like this that sit on a machine that's like this and weighs 170 kilograms. So it's all pretty fancy technology, but we've tried to show as much as we can on our Instagram of what it actually looks like, because it's one of the things that always really struck me is that most people, when they come to use our services, will have never had this done, will have never used these services before. So it is pretty alien. It's not something everyone knows about. So we've tried really hard to make sure there's lots of videos and photos. Apart from that, you also get to see what the team looks like.